Hey everyone, and welcome back to Happily Gamer After. On October 18th, 1985, the Nintendo Entertainment System was released and completely revolutionized video games as we knew them. I still remember the first time I played Super Mario Bros. I was like, oh my god, it looks like a cartoon. And it kind of did at the time. I was used to playing an Atari 2600 where a knight in shining armor was represented by a yellow box. But the NES changed all that. These games had characters and stories and animation and music. And they became the blueprints of video games for generations to come. Now, retro gaming is huge currently, and with systems like the Retron 5 and independent developers making new games in retro styles, there are just so many ways to get your classic gaming fix. But if you want a brand new 8-bit adventure that really gives you those old school Nintendo feels, you need look no further than Shovel Knight. One year after an extremely successful Kickstarter campaign, indie developer Yacht Club Games released their very first game, Shovel Knight, and in the blink of an eye, it became an instant classic. Influenced by NES staples like Mega Man and Disney's DuckTales, director Sean Velasco wanted to give everyone the same collective types of game experiences that have defined our generation, and Shovel Knight delivers that in spades. From its 8-bit graphics and music to its classic platforming gameplay, Shovel Knight isn't just the retro indie game we want, it's the one we deserve. After his beloved Shield Knight is locked away in the Tower of Fate, the grief-stricken Shovel Knight gives up his days of adventuring and exiles himself to a life of solitude. But when the evil Enchantress and her knights, the Order of No Quarter, appear, and the Tower of Fate opens once again, Shovel Knight grabs his trusty shovel and heads out on an all-new adventure. The gameplay in Shovel Knight is everything you would expect from an old-school Nintendo platformer. You run and jump through stage after stage, defeating baddies, collecting treasure, discovering secret areas, and fighting a boss at the end of each level. Shovel Knight can swing his shovel like a sword to battle his enemies, or bounce on them similarly to Scrooge McDuck's pogo jump or Link's downward thrust. Secondary weapons can be found in each level that work like the ones from the Castlevania games. Relics like the Flare Wand, Throwing Anchor, Booming Horn, and Propeller Dagger add a variety of new attacks for Shovel Knight to deliver to his enemies. The controls are smooth and easy to handle, and though it took me a minute to get used to the short-range combat, by the end of the prologue, everything felt completely natural. The level design is excellent and pays homage to some of the most memorable 8-bit classics from the past. The main map is reminiscent of Super Mario Bros. 3, where you move around from area to area and occasionally do battle with a wandering warrior. Between levels, you can visit different towns that would feel right at home in Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. There, you can participate in side quests, extend your health and magic meters, purchase relics that you may have missed out in the field, upgrade your shovel with new attacks, and buy new suits of armor with different attributes and effects. The main stages themselves play out like a Mega Man game, where you choose from the available levels to tackle one of the 8 Knights of the Order of No Quarter: King Knight, Spectre Knight, Plague Knight, Polar Knight, Mole Knight, Tinker Knight, Propeller Knight, and Treasure Knight. Each level has numerous checkpoints for you to continue at if you die, but for an extra challenge, you can destroy each checkpoint for treasure, offering a unique risk-reward system. To add to the challenge, the game has a death system similar to Dark Souls, where you lose about a third of your treasure when you die, with a chance to get it back if you can reach it on your next try. The difficulty is challenging like most retro games, but never so hard that it becomes overly frustrating. Shovel Knight doesn't just feel like a classic, it looks like one too. In fact, the developers limited themselves to the NES's 8-bit color palette and other hardware constraints to give it a completely authentic look. For example, large boss battles take place on black backgrounds to allow for the maximum amount of on-screen color, similarly to games like Mega Man and Ninja Gaiden. But they never let those limitations hold them back from making a really beautiful game. The sprites are highly detailed and the colors are bright and vibrant. The villagers and bosses all have fun animations and character portraits that add personality and charm to every single one. The special effects are good and the levels are full of depth and a great attention to detail. Everything is soaked in a layer of authenticity that's better than almost any other retro-style game I've seen before. Now, no nostalgia trip would be complete without a rockin' 8-bit soundtrack, and Shovel Knight delivers with some of the best musical talent in the business. Renowned video game composer Jake Kaufman, whose work includes the Shantae games and Adventure Time, provided an excellent musical score that feels right at home with the classics. Additional contributions were made by Manami Matsumae, the composer of the original Mega Man game, whose tracks are some of the most memorable in 8-bit history. From the Castlevania-esque retro rock of the Lich Yard to the trippy carnival-style tunes of the Explodatorium, every level is paired with an excellent theme that perfectly matches the tone of its visuals. Not only is the music catchy, but the quality of it is a cut above almost anything you'd hear on an NES. Shovel Knight emulates the VRC-6, an upgraded NES chipset that added 3 extra sound channels and was used in the Japanese version of Castlevania 3, providing some of the highest quality music on the NES. Shovel Knight takes full advantage of the VRC-6's sound capabilities, giving an extra boost to its already impressive musical score. As if Shovel Knight weren't a full package deal already, the game comes packed to the max with bonus features, some of which are exclusive to different consoles. The PS4 version has a boss battle with Kratos from God of War, while the Xbox One has you facing off against the Battletoads. The 3DS version features Street Pass capabilities that let you do battle against other players' custom knights, and there's a 2-player co-op campaign as well, which sadly is exclusive to the Wii U version, and only unlockable by scanning the Shovel Knight amiibo. There's also a challenge mode that pits you against different trials and boss battles, as well as New Game Plus, which provides a greater challenge in exchange for letting you start with all your upgrades. But the biggest feature of all is Shovel Knight Plague of Shadows, a complete expansion to the game that stars Plague Knight as a playable character. But this isn't just a new character, it's a completely different game with a new story, different gameplay mechanics, new weapons, upgrades, characters, currencies, and a surprisingly cute love story. Running parallel to Shovel Knight's story, Plague Knight sets out to steal the essences of the other knights to create the ultimate potion capable of granting a single wish. With the help of Mona the Alchemist, you create bomb parts by collecting green coins out in the field and customize bombs for a huge assortment of different attacks. The casing determines how the bomb is thrown, the powder determines what kind of explosion it makes, and the fuse determines when it explodes. This customization creates a great level of strategy in determining ways to take on different enemies. Plague Knight also has both a double jump and a customizable bomb jump, which adds an even more methodical approach to the platforming in the game. Even though the main levels are the same, they feel a bit different and deceptively more challenging than before. And with all new relics to collect, some new areas to explore, and a couple of new boss battles, in some ways, Plague of Shadows is an even better game than its predecessor. Even if you've never played an NES game before, Shovel Knight is an excellent game that embodies everything that retro gaming is about. The gameplay is both fun and challenging, and the graphics have a nostalgic retro aesthetic that look good even by today's standards. The music is catchy and memorable, and the amount of free content available now and coming soon is a real testament to the love and passion that continues to go into the game. With its finely tuned gameplay and visual charm, Shovel Knight is a beautifully crafted experience that truly defines what it means to be a modern classic. So yeah, Shovel Knight is an absolutely fantastic retro game, and it just continues to get better and better. Later this year, they're releasing 2 more expansions, one starring King Knight and the other starring Spectre Knight, a 4-player battle mode where you can duke it out with your friends as any of the main characters, including the bosses, and a gender swap mode that changes all the knights to women and vice versa. And all of this comes at the completely low cost of absolutely nothing. All the DLC for now and in the future is free. And considering the game's $15 to $19 price tag, I can't think of any other game in recent memory with more bang for your buck than Shovel Knight. Until next time, happy gaming.